President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is calling James Comey, who used to work for Giuliani, a disgraceful liar. He said the fired FBI director should be prosecuted, echoing earlier statements made by the president. Comey's new memoir, A Higher Loyalty, Truth, Lies, and Leadership, is now a New York Times bestseller. It details his early career, his years in the Justice Department, and his relationship with President Trump. With more on the book, let's bring in James Comey. Thank you so much for being here with us, sir.
Thanks for having me, Vlad.
Thank you so much. So let's jump right into it. President Trump's lawyer has called you a disgraceful liar. The White House initially said President Trump fired you at the recommendation of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who wrote a memo suggesting you be fired over your handling of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server. Since then, we've heard a couple of different explanations from former New York City Mayor Giuliani. Let's play this.
Regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey, knowing there was no good time to do it. And in fact, when I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, you know, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story.
He fired Comey because Comey would not, among other things, say that he wasn't a target of the investigation.
So what do you make of these different explanations, and why do you think you were fired?
I don't know what to make of these explanations. They can't all be true, but I honestly don't know the real reason that I was fired. I originally took the president at his word when I saw him on TV saying it was connected to the Russia investigation. That has shifted since, but that's one of the things I'm sure the special prosecutor is trying to understand.
So even after all this time, you're not exactly clear as to why you were fired?
No, I don't think it was because of the original reason that was put forward, the handling of the Clinton email investigation. But beyond that, it's hard for me to say.
I want to read a passage from the book, and it's a fascinating book, and it takes us back to January of 2017. You write this: the President of the United States just demanded the FBI director's loyalty. This was surreal. To those inclined to defend Trump, they might consider how it would look if President Obama had called the FBI director to a one-on-one dinner during an investigation of senior officials in his administration, then discussed his job security, and then said he expected loyalty. There would undoubtedly be people appearing on Fox News calling for Obama's impeachment. You say it was surreal. Do you just describe that moment for us in greater detail?
Well, I thought it was going to be a dinner with a group of leaders as a new president got to know his senior national security team, and I was surprised it was us alone, and that early in the dinner, he acted as if he hadn't several times already expressed his hope that I would stay as FBI director, which was bizarre. And then he looked me in the eye and said he needed loyalty, that he expected loyalty, and I was stunned by that. And all I could think of to do was not move, just stare at him and not even blink to give him any sense of assent. Because the independence of the FBI, of course, it's in the executive branch, but it can't be the servant of the president in the sense that he intended that.
Did you think of, ultimately, I know this is the title of the book, but you talk frequently about a higher loyalty. Did that cross your mind?
Of course, because I was leading an institution that at its core had a set of values: the rule of law, an independent pursuit of facts and truth, and a separation from the political. And those are the higher values that animate and inspire the FBI. And so I had those front of mind, and this request for personal loyalty was totally inconsistent with that and a threat to that.
All right, let's talk about the president's legal issues. It's been reported that his legal team has been told by the special counsel, Robert Mueller, that the president is not being considered as a target in this investigation. But I think a lot of folks may not understand the difference between a target, a witness, a subject. What are those differences?
There are three states of the world in a criminal investigation. One is a witness. You're just someone, you were a bank teller, and so you saw the robber come in and your facts are relevant to the investigation. You have no jeopardy. The second is you're a target, which is a very narrow category of people. Those are people on whom the government has already gathered significant evidence sufficient to charge you. So you're about to be charged. And a subject is everybody in between, someone whose conduct is being examined. You can be close to being a target based on the investigation, or it could wash out and you're about to no longer be a subject, you'll be just a witness.
Because they say that he is not a target, but he's more than a witness. What does that mean?
It means you're somebody that they're investigating, that you're not the bank teller. They're trying to figure out, were you in the bank with a gun and a mask? And that's a serious place to be.
All right. In the book, you talk about President Trump's fixation on the alleged Steele dossier. You said he was fixated on that. You later said you think it's possible but not likely that Russia has compromising information on the president. Why do you feel that way?
common sense and just my encounters with the president. Normally, I would dismiss it out of hand. It's a preposterous allegation that the president was engaged in those kind of activities in Russia. But given his reaction to them, especially his constantly bringing it up to deny it when I wasn't asking about it, and some of his statements gave me a sense that, look, this is actually possible, combined with the fact that even in private, he wouldn't criticize Vladimir Putin. I get why you might not want to criticize another leader in public, but in private, to defend your comparison of Putin's killers to the men and women of the United States government made no sense to me. And so those things together tell me, look, I never thought I'd say this, but it's possible.
All right, so let me use that, your statements in context of the comments that you made to Congress in July of 2016 when you faced some questions from lawmakers on Capitol Hill over your decision not to prosecute Hillary Clinton. I want to play what you had to say.
We have no basis to conclude she lied to the FBI.
Did she lie to the public?
That's a question I'm not qualified to answer. I can speak about what she said to the FBI.
So why were you so unambiguous in your assessment there, but you are seemingly more ambiguous when it comes to President Trump and the Steele dossier?
Well, with respect to Secretary Clinton, we had just completed a year-long investigation and had found no evidence. We were in the evidence business, which is where you'd want us to be, no evidence to establish that she had lied to the FBI. With respect to President Trump, I haven't completed an investigation, nor did I conduct an investigation to understand whether he had been involved in those activities in Russia and whether the Russians had compromising material on him. So I'm not able to answer at the end of an investigation. I'm simply answering from a combination of circumstances that I can't rule it out.
When people criticize you, and I know you don't pay attention to your critics, but when people criticize you and say, look, it seems that he's going off his gut when it comes to President Trump, and based on the evidence with Secretary Clinton, that somehow doesn't jibe with them.
Yeah, and I do listen to my critics, even the wing.
I know you write about that a little
even
bit.
Even the wingnuts. I try not to listen to them a lot, but I listen to them enough to see if I might be missing something. Two very different things. I'm being asked, is it possible that they had compromising material on President Trump? And I have to answer honestly, look, it's possible. With Secretary Clinton, the question I'm being asked is, did she lie to the FBI? And I'm able to give an evidence-based answer after a year of investigation. So I don't see the two as inconsistent.
You've called President Trump, quote, morally unfit to be president. Given what you know both personally and professionally about former Secretary Hillary Clinton and President Trump, would you be willing to describe her in the same way?
Too hard for me to answer because she never became president, and I didn't.
But just in your experience with her.
I don't have experience with her. I've never met the woman. We investigated, agents of the FBI and analysts of the FBI investigated her under my supervision for a year, but I don't know her personally and haven't been up close in the same way I was with President Trump.
But she's been in the public eye even before her husband became president of the United States, when she was First Lady of Arkansas. As a former investigator, as an FBI agent, can you give some kind of an assessment as to whether or not she would be qualified or morally unfit to be president, as some of her detractors have said?
Yeah, it's a great question. It won't surprise you that I was, even before my current circumstances, skeptical of what I read about people, and so didn't take things at face value. Having been discussed in the public eye now for the last year or so, I'm even more skeptical of what I read. I can't know a person in the way I got to know Donald Trump from what I read and saw in the media. And the woman never became president, and she never interacted with me the way that Donald Trump and I interacted. So I just don't have the basis to make that judgment. I do think I have a basis to make it about President Trump.
This week, a group of congressional Republicans drafted articles of impeachment against Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. I want to play what he had to say in response.
In that way, but I can tell you, there have been people who have been making threats privately and publicly against me for quite some time, and I think they should understand by now the Department of Justice is not going to be extorted. We're going to do what's required by the rule of law, and any kind of threats that anybody makes are not going to affect the way we do our job.
As a former prosecutor, what do you make of that word choice coming from Mr. Rosenstein?
It's great. Good for him. Good for him. And I think he's conducted himself well in overseeing former Director Mueller and standing up for the rule of law. He's in a very difficult position. The President of the United States is attacking his own Justice Department. Think about that for a second. That is not okay. It's not normal. It's wrong. And I appreciate the way he's speaking.
In your entire life, did you ever think that you would hear agents of the FBI being described as Nazi stormtroopers? I know you've tweeted about this.
No. And again, there's a danger that there's so much that's been done by this president and those who represent him to undermine the rule of law and the truth that we're numb to it. We can't be. We need the Federal Bureau of Investigation. First of all, it's just false. And we need that organization because that organization has to be able to investigate politicians and hold them accountable. It's just terrible what's going on. And all of us, especially Republicans, know better. And they ought to close their eyes and imagine Barack Obama or his representatives calling the FBI, which is investigating him, Nazi stormtroopers. Their heads would explode. So where are you? And exactly what are you going to say to your grandchildren someday about what you did during this moment in American history?
In your book, after a statement like that, I want to talk a little bit about a criticism, and you said you've listened to your critics. You describe President Trump's appearance as, quote, face appeared slightly orange with bright white half moons under his eyes, where I assume he placed small tanning goggles and impressively coiffed. I've never known how to say that word.
Yeah,
coiffed,
sure.
coiffed, right?
Coiffed.
Coiffed is a word. Bright blonde hair, which upon close inspection looked to be all his. Many have said that that's sort of a petty description, and why include that in a book about truth, lies, and leadership?
Yeah, I've never been an author before, but I can hear my editor's voice in my head saying, describe, describe, describe. If you read the book, which I know you have, you see I did that about my boss at the grocery store. I did that about John Ashcroft's skin color lying in bed. I'm trying to bring the reader with me, and I really was not trying to attack President Trump. People fixed on that originally, which is a little bit silly. If I had to do over again, I wouldn't give them that paragraph to focus on, but I really was trying to be an actual author.
You've written this book, and also it was fascinating to me to watch people try to figure out what your social media handle was, when ultimately you start a lot of your chapters with quotes from Reinhold Niebuhr, and that became your Twitter handle. What is next for you?
I guess I'll continue to tweet some, but I'm going to teach at my alma mater, the College of William & Mary, teaching a course about leadership and ethics, and I'm going to travel around and try to speak about leadership and what it should be, and why we cannot accept what we're experiencing now as normal or acceptable.
Thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Vlad.
Thank you.
Thank you.